teacher this afternoon, Robert Tuggle, remembers LAURITZ MELCHIOR. Mr. Tuggle is Director of Archives at the Metropolitan Opera.
Thank you, Peter Allen. 60 years ago next March, the great Danish tenor LAURITZ MELCHIOR made his Metropolitan Opera debut as Tannhäuser. Unrehearsed, perhaps distracted by the backstage hammering as telephone wires were installed to carry another debut the same day, the huge presence of Melchior was all but overlooked. Melchior's career grew slowly, both in Europe and New York. Originally a baritone, he was described as a tenor with a lid on the top of his voice. He restudied, alternated baritone and tenor roles, and finally emerged in the 1920s as a leading Wagnerian Helden tenor. In March 1929, on his 39th birthday, Melchior gave a New York audience its first glimpse of his Tristan, one of opera's classic portrayals. Lawrence Gilman commented on the beauty of tone and phrasing and the ability to sing softly. Quote, "The results are grateful to a degree that can be understood only by those who have suffered, as so many of us have, from the hideous, brazen bawling, the tonal mayhem committed by a majority of the Metropolitan's Helden tenors during recent years." End quote. Melchior's Met career would extend for 21 more seasons. Frida Leider sang with him for 2 seasons in the 30s, and then began that unparalleled outpouring of Wagnerian heroines at the Metropolitan. Kirsten Flagstad, Marjorie Lawrence, Rose Bampton, Helen Traubel, and Astrid Varnay. For all of them, Melchior was a noble partner. However, the Flagstad-Melchior combination was unique. tend in operatic circles to compare everyone, and if we are especially pleased, we suggest that Mr. X may well be the best since Mr. Y. But searching the pages of operatic history, do we find any pair preceding Flagstad and Melchior who might have been their equals? During the Birgit Nielsen era at the Metropolitan, 3 ailing tenors were persuaded to partner Madame Nielsen in an act apiece so that the Tristan performance could go on. Melchior had something as Tristan that we have learned to covet. He could sing the complete work. In some ways, our great singers resemble ordinary human beings, however, not in ways that are very important. Melchior's life and what he made of it were larger than life, beyond the events of the man in the street. Melchior found his wife when a German film actress parachuted into a Munich garden and into his arms. A big game hunter when it was still fashionable, he provided his own costumes for Siegmund and Siegfried from wild animals that he had shot. With his jovial personality and ability to laugh at himself, he acquired a reputation totally in contrast to the utter seriousness of his Wagnerian heroes. At a Met fundraising performance in the 1930s, he and Tiny Lily Pons performed a Parisian Apache dance. She was the man. Towering several feet above her was her partner, LAURITZ Melchior, in short satin skirt, a black garter encircling one enormous thigh. On a joint concert tour with Melchior, soprano Lottie Lehman wondered at the audience's laughter during one of her serious solos. Melchior had crossed the stage behind her, riding a bicycle. Over the years, Melchior became less willing to rehearse. In Act 1 of Parsifal, he would become bored at standing on stage while not singing, and wander off for a beer. Occasionally, he needed special help from conductors. Bruno Walter once tactfully advised him, "Melchior, my left hand is exclusively yours." Melchior left the Metropolitan in 1950 after a public disagreement with incoming general manager Rudolf Bing. His last performance as Lohengrin, on February 2, 1950, left behind a rich legacy of 499 performances, dozens of each of his major Wagnerian parts, and more than 100 Tristans. After the war, Flagstad and Melchior did not sing together again. This extraordinary partnership that looms so grandly in our past had lasted 6 brief years. In 1960, in his 70th year, Melchior revisited his native Denmark. The Met's bass, Aga Haugland, was there for Melchior's broadcast of Act 1 of Valkyrie, and remembers the arrival of the giant figure, white-bearded and wearing a Texan's 10-gallon hat. His score was thin, as Wagnerian scores go. Every page without Siegmund's music had been ripped out. For the conductor, there was the advice, "Follow me." Still intact were the broad, glowing phrases that we hear in this earlier recording.
Leuchtet der Lenz auf linden Lüchten, leicht und lieblich, Wunderweben, der sich wiegt, durch Wald und Auen weht sein Atem, weit geöffnet lacht sein Ohr, auf silber Vöglein sang es süßer Töne, holte Füße auf der Mond, deinem warmen Blut entblühen wonnige Blumen, Keim und Sprossen springt ein Schaf. Mit Waffen wir bezwingt ja die Welt, Wind und Sturm wischen der starken Wehr, und den Tapfern streichen die strenge Tür aufweichen, die trotzig und starr und trennte von ihm.
After the performance, broadcast throughout Scandinavia, Melchior had his first contact in years with Kirsten Flagstad. A telegram signed, "Your Isolde," assured him that he would always be the finest. A reconciliation with the Metropolitan took longer. However, Melchior willed his powerful portrait as Tristan to the company, and it occupies a place of honor in Founders Hall. His Swan Night costume was displayed for opening night audiences at last season's Lohengrin. However, more powerful and lasting than any of these visual images are the burnished sounds that still reverberate through Met history.
Thank you, Robert Tuggle, for those reminiscences of a glorious career.